George might amount to something if we could just get into overcoming shyness. Thank you, George. I really am glad to be here. I know that's the correct thing to say, but it's true. You didn't have to invite me. You can live the rest of your life without inviting me, but you did, and I'm grateful. It's an honor to be here. And I almost feel at home in Stewart County. I've spent so much time here and done so much research here. And the reason I came up here a little while ago and got caught where I had to sit down, I wanted to ask Hannah, what is it you want me to do? Because I still didn't know.
Whatever you do best.
She said, whatever I want to do. And so I wonder what that's going to be. George mentioned my disappointment with the first publisher. First publisher was the University of Tennessee Press. I wrote the book for them. And the acquisitions editor at the time, who's now the director of the whole thing, really wanted to publish the book. But in academic publishing, your book has to go through something called peer review. And what that means is they pay 3 experts in the field to read the manuscript and evaluate it. And the writer, the author, is not supposed to know who they are. So the first 2 reviewers were extremely helpful. The first one was Frank Cooley, who was the reigning authority on the battles for Fort Donelson and the aftermath at the National Defense University. And he and the second one were extremely helpful and made the book better. The third one was an arrogant jerk. To begin with, I've never met him, and I don't look forward to it. I won't, try to make that happen. To begin with, he sat on it for a year while I got 1 year older and didn't even open it. And they paid him to do this. Then, when he did, he just kind of thumbed through it and dismissed it with a wave of his hand and said, poor scholarship. He doesn't believe that an interview with a family member or a secondary source is real evidence. Anyway, I was hugely disappointed, as you can imagine, and so was Scott, the editor, who really wanted to publish the book. But he couldn't, because that's the way the game is played. But what Scott did was point me to the right publisher, and I wound up with Pelican in New Orleans, and I couldn't be happier. Hardly a day goes by now that I don't thank God for that arrogant jerk who dismissed my book as a poor scholarship, because I love Pelican. To begin with, academic publishers don't sell very many books. They sell to libraries and book racks in national parks, and that's about it. This book, I'm happy to tell you, if you haven't heard, is now being published in Great Britain. And I think that's nice, because I think Jack Hinson would smile to know that his story is being read and talked about in the land of his ancestors. It's just taken on a life of its own. It has exceeded everybody's expectations in terms of reception and how it sells. In fact, I had a book event at Fort Negley Park in Nashville Saturday, and there was such a mob scene, and I barely survived. And then when I finally raised my head up, the ranger at the park came and said, a lot of other people who couldn't get in the first time would like to do it again. Would you do it again? So we had a double header at Fort Negley Park, and I staggered home at midnight, more dead than alive. But sometimes I wonder how much of this success I'm going to survive. But I want to tell you that I give God the glory for everything that goes right. And I can't explain why the book has been so well received. It just is. And people often ask me how I came to write the book. And it all started with a historical marker at Golden Pond. I love history. My wife loves history. We never pass a historical marker without stopping to read it. we can do it without getting killed. And about 1965, I was driving across 6880 through the land between the lakes, and I stopped where Golden Pond once was. And I'm sentimental, and I'm old enough to remember when the lakes weren't there. It was not the land between the lakes National Recreation Area, it was just between the rivers. And I was stopped there, and I was thinking about the people and what fine, self-reliant, independent, hard-working people they had been. What a tragedy I still think it is that they were driven from their homes so we could create that thing. And I had to keep going, so I pulled out of Golden Pond, and as I did, over on the right there was a historical marker. And incidentally, it's not there now, but I'm not going to give them any peace until they put it back. The road was widened, and it disappeared. And I saw a brief summary of the story of a man named Jack Hinson, Confederate sniper, how he had been, his two sons had been murdered by occupation troops, and he had set out to get vengeance, and by the end of the war he had killed 36, or I think it says he had 36 notches